Hello and welcome to M Creates, where we solve problems with great design. In today's video is going to be aimed at my fellow creatives out there who are just getting started with video animation. We'll specifically be looking at Adobe After Effects. I hope this is going to be useful for those just starting out with the program. We're going to cover some basic principles and recreate an animation which you can use with your own assets. So let's get started. And here we have the After Effects file that I will be working on today and that I'll be showing you how to create. So let's just have a quick look at what we have. As you can see, really simple and straightforward. We're just going to have a couple of elements doing some basic movements, and we've even got a sound effect in there as well. So what I'm going to do is delete everything that we have for now and we'll start fresh. So your home screen will look a little bit like this. So what you'll want to do is click New Project and then you'll hit New Composition. And this is where you can create the canvas that your video or animation will be made on. So here you can see I've got the standard 1920 by 1080, so this is standard YouTube sizing, and we'll click OK. So now this will bring us to the main canvas that we're working on, and I'm going to explain some of the panels that you can see here. So on the left hand side you'll see we've got our project panel, so this has the composition as well as any media that we've imported to be part of our project. The bottom banner or ribbon we have here is our timeline. This is where we'll be doing a lot of the work for transitions and effects. The middle is your canvas, and the right hand side has a different variety of windows. These can be tailored to whatever you use with the Windows button here at the top. We also have a ribbon along the top with some of the main tools that you'll be using. So we've got the selection tool, which I'm on now, the hand tool and the rectangle tool. These are the main ones that we'll be using today. So first things first, you're going to want to import assets that will be part of your animation or video. This can be any kind of files, videos, JPEGs, logos, etc. So the way you're going to do that is File, Import, File or multiple files. Multiple files allows you to select multiple, File just brings in one. So simply select the folder that you want it to be part of and click Open, and they will appear here. You can also click and drag assets into your project panel. So now that I've got the assets that I want, I am going to simply click, hold and drag onto my canvas. And here we are. We have the first asset for our animation. All I'm going to do is ensure that it's aligned in the middle. So here we go. That is a good start. Now notice here that the background is black. This is just the After Effects default, but if we toggle down here the transparency grid, you'll see in reality all this video is my logo at the moment. Now I want my logo to have a white background and I want the canvas to be white for this video. So what I'm going to do is Layer, New, Shape Layer. Now, the default for when we select this layer is to have, you can see a small star and a cross where my cursor is. This is going to allow me to draw the shape that I want to draw. Now, the rectangle tool on the top ribbon here shows that we'll be drawing a rectangle. There's also some options for rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon and star. But for now, we're just going to do rectangle. And I'm going to drag that across the whole canvas here. Now I need to select the selection tool. And what I want to do is ensure that this is the background. So you notice here on the bottom panel, my shape layer is above my logo. All I need to do is click and drag it down there. So think of each of these as different layers that you'd have in Photoshop. Just determine the hierarchy by whichever order you have them in on your panel. So we're off to a good start. Now I'm going to start to add some movement to this logo. Now what I'm going to do is, if you hit the down arrow, which is on the left of any of your assets in the timeline, you'll see that there's an option to transform. We'll expand that menu as well. Now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 key elements of everything within After Effects to do with how you want to express or move your elements. So we've got the anchor point, which is the circle and cross you see in the middle here. We have the position, so the position of the element on the canvas. You can see those numbers are changing down here. So let's just put that back to the middle. We've got the scale, which is locked at the moment to be kept within ratio. Let's just put that back to 100%. We have rotation and opacity as well. So rotation will dictate, rotation will change the rotation of the object, and opacity is how see-through or clear, and opacity is how see-through your logo is. So what I would like to do is, I think it would be a good idea to have my logo kind of emerge from the center, and the way that we're going to do that is with scale. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on my timeline at the bottom here so that we can see. Okay, so we can see 6 seconds worth here. This is 6 seconds. So at the beginning, I want the logo to be quite small because I want it to appear slowly. So if you click any of the blue numbers here and drag, it will adjust the scale accordingly. So let's bring it down to about 15, seems all right. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use keyframes to tell After Effects at what time I want my logo to be at this scale. So when you click the little stopwatch here, you'll notice there's a blue diamond here and on the timeline. So if I now move my video cursor further, let's say to 1 second, you'll see here that this keyframe remains the same. Now what I want to tell After Effects is that at 1 second into my video animation, I want my logo to be bigger. So what I'm going to do is when I've dragged the cursor to 1 second, is simply increase the scale to, actually let's type in to 100%. So now you'll see we've got 2 keyframes here, and you can see when I move the time cursor between them, the logo gets bigger. So what it's telling After Effects is that 0 seconds is going to be this big, and at 1 second it's going to be that big. After Effects works out the in-between. So if I hit play, brilliant, we have a simple scaling animation there. So I like the speed that that's going at. I think it would be a good idea to have the opacity increase as it comes in. So let's do exactly the same principle, go back to 0. The opacity, we're going to hit our stopwatch to tell After Effects what we want it to be at when we start the video. So I want it to be at 0 first of all. And as we drag it to 1 second, I want the opacity to be 100. So let's go back and see what that looks like. Nice. So now we've got quite a soft and seamless increase in opacity and scale. Now this is quite a good start, but I think we're going to make it a bit more interesting and add some rotation as well. So again, back to the start. Let's press the stopwatch for rotation and drag it forward to 1 second. I think one 360-degree rotation would be good for this. So you'll notice 2 numbers on rotation. There's 0 times plus 0.0. So the first number is whole rotations. The second number will be part rotation. So a whole rotation is 360, half is 180. So if you want to do 1.5, you could do 1 and then 180. So that'll be 1.5 rotations, as you can see there. But I'm just going to do 1 for now. Let's go back, play, and there we go. So I like that, but I think the rotation's probably a bit fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow this rotation down by moving the keyframe. So let's move the keyframes for all of them. If I move my cursor to 2 seconds and I click, hold and drag to select these 3 keyframes, I can move them all to 2 seconds. Let's see what that looks like. Nice. That looks a lot better, not too fast, not too snappy. Now what I'm going to do to make it a bit more smooth and seamless is I'm going to click, drag and select all of my keyframes. And I'm going to go to Keyframe Assistant and I'm going to click Easy Ease. So this changes the shape to a small egg timer kind of shape. And this basically eases the transition so it's not as harsh. The difference is minimal, but when you're working with a lot of different elements, it does make a difference. So that's the first element of this animation. The second is the pointer arrow, which we saw in the first video. So I have that here in my project. I'm going to put my cursor onto 2 seconds and I'm going to drag this in here. That's a little bit big, so I'm going to use the transform chords on the canvas itself and hold the shift button to adjust. Ooh. Okay, I'm happy with that size. Now let's determine the position. So let's open up our menu again down here. And position in the before I want this to appear on the screen. So I'm going to drag it off here. So at 2 seconds, once this animation is done, this is when we can start getting the arrow involved. So at 2 seconds, the arrow position needs to be off the screen. And let's say at 3 seconds, I want it to be in the middle here. So I'll drag my time indicator to 3 seconds. And all I'm going to do is drag the arrow to where I want it to be. And you'll see here, you can see a path that we've created. So if we go back to 2 seconds, that is a path that the arrow has gone on. So I like that path, it's a good timing, but maybe I don't want it as straight as we've got it here. So I'm going to select this kind of node or chord that we have here and adjust it to be a curve. Let's see how that looks. Nice, that looks a little bit more natural. So you can see there's a couple of ways that we can dictate position. We can do it on the panel down here with the numbers, or we can click and drag over here. I find the clicking and dragging is nicer for more curved movements, but if you just want to go up or down on a horizontal or vertical axis, you can use the transform panel down here. So now that we have our arrow coming in, I want it to make a kind of clicking motion. The way I'm going to do that is with scale. So at 3 seconds it comes in, and then maybe let's start a couple of frames afterwards. We're going to adjust the scale. So let me zoom in on my panel down here a little bit further so I can see more frames. Okay. So to adjust the scale, similar to what we did with the logo, I'm going to hit the scale stopwatch here. And let's move forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames. And when we click, we're going to want to reduce the size slightly. So we're currently at 45, let's say 35. And then let's move forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames. And let's go back to the 45. So what I've done here is we've put the scale, we've reduced it for the clicking motion, and we've brought it back out to complete that motion. So if we zoom out a little bit on our timeline, actually that zoomed out quite a lot on the timeline. So let's press play. That click was a little bit fast. Let's look at that again. Actually, no, I'm happy with that. So if you want that to be a bit faster, of course you can drag your keyframes closer together, or you can drag them further apart. But I like the way that that clicks. Now, just for good practice, I am gonna keyframe assistant easy ease those frames. Nice. So this is the basis of our animation. What I think would be quite nice is to add a sound as well. So I've imported a free sound from online, and I'm going to drag that down to the time cursor here. Okay, so that time is a little bit delayed. Let's bring it forward. Oh, I can't get this right. Let's bring that forward a tiny little bit. That's too much. Okay, let's say that's about right. That's not about right. So After Effects might be a bit fiddly, you probably need to zoom in a little bit. Okay, that looks right. You may need to zoom in to get better control of how many frames you're going to be moving an element. Okay, I'm happy with that. And now rather than the arrow staying there, I want it to fade out. So let's go forward a couple of keyframes. Let's reduce the opacity. So I'm going to click the stopwatch on opacity, move forward a couple of frames and hit 0. So fade. Nice. So now we have our animation. What I'm going to do is reduce the size of the video. I had my previous YouTube settings, so this is a very, very long video. It's got 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is reduce here from this. If you hover over this blue element here, work area, you can reduce it. So I'm going to reduce it to the size of the video, of the animation, which is to about, let's put it to 5 seconds because that's after the arrow has faded. And now File, Export, Add to Render Queue. Now the bottom panel will change. You can still see Comp 1 here, but you'll notice another tab called Render Queue. And this is where you can select your settings. So keep it at high quality and output to. So if you hit Not Yet Specified, you can then save it in your folder and then hit render, and you'll see here it's producing each frame, and that is now complete. You have your first After Effects animation. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you found this video useful for the basic principles of After Effects. As you're going to progress on your journey in using Adobe After Effects, you'll realise that you can actually use a lot of presets and movements and behaviours in the effects panel. But the idea of this was to get you used to the idea of transforming basic assets within After Effects using the transform properties within the timeline panel. Again, I hope you found this video useful. Please do like and subscribe for weekly videos on design tips and other things in the creative world, and I hope to see you all next week. Bye!